Welcome to The Craft. I'm your host, May Globus. This podcast is a collection of intimate conversations on artistry, mastery, and life with talented, passionately curious creatives and entrepreneurs. Most are dear friends, some are those I've admired from afar. I hope you enjoy these conversations, this exploration of the humanity that connects all of us, as much as I do having them. Thank you for being here and for listening. Holistic integrative practitioner, Kate Horsman, has an aura of warmth and inner beauty that orbits around her. The former professional ballet dancer works with a wide variety of private and corporate clients, supporting them on their healing journeys. She was born and raised in Vancouver and started dancing at the age of 3. Both naturally gifted, coupled with a deep passion for ballet, she quickly excelled. By 9 years old, she was already at the National Ballet of Canada. Kate then moved to New York after being accepted into the School of American Ballet, but her health deteriorated when she developed an eating disorder. Kate eventually left ballet, realizing it was no longer her happy place. This started a journey of coming back home to herself and moving into a calling to support others in their lives. In this conversation, we explore growing up in a household with 2 chronically ill parents, her experience in ballet and the difficult shift in identity when she left that world, taking her counseling degree, and finding herself pulled toward nutrition and merging that with other energy modalities in her work, the concepts of achievement and perfection, what she'd tell people suffering from eating disorders quietly, learning to trust oneself and body, and much more. Please enjoy this deeply intimate and honest conversation with the incredibly beautiful soul and human, Kate Horsman. Kate Horsman, welcome to The Craft.
Thank you for having me, May.
I'm delighted you're here.
I'm really glad to be here.
Yes. I've always really loved running into you, and your energy is just so peaceful and gentle. It's like a very calming, warm hug to run across you.
That feels really good to receive. And also, like, it is for me just like such an interesting contrast of, like, I think a lot of people would, I hope they would describe me that way, or my energy that way. And at a lot of times that was in opposition to what I was feeling inside. So, that's just like an important, piece to note within myself is like, maybe I am a more integrated version of that piece at this point in my life.
Than you even know. Yeah. Well, we were chatting about how we connected many moons ago, and we think it was through Azita Articani when I used to work at Love Social, and our office was in Gastown, which is where you live, and you knew her, and I think somewhere along the way we had run into each other as a small little group, and through the years we've had mutual friends, and through our different, I guess, jobs, probably crossed paths that way. But yeah, no, it's going to be really amazing getting to know you even more deeply in this conversation.
It feels interesting to actually visit like a deep conversation now, as opposed to like being in each other's hemispheres, but not directly. So.
Yes, exactly. And just a funny random thing that I saw when I was doing some research, I came across an article, I think it was Western Living, and it had images of your house, and you had an E.T.
Oh, he's still
doll.
there.
Is he still there?
He's still there.
Oh my gosh. So growing up, I also had an E.T. stuffed animal
No.
that was high on one of my bookshelves in my room. I was a child. I was terrified of it though. Yeah, it didn't really bring me comfort, though I loved the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just thought it was interesting that we both had E.T. dolls.
Well, I mean, I have a collection of them.
Oh,
I have a
really?
collection of E.T.s, And even though my home has been renovated, E.T. very much still belongs in this space, and I'm still exploring my relationship to it, to be honest. It is a scary movie, I think, for children. I actually recently introduced it to my niece, and just walking her through like the really hard parts and the magical parts. Like it exposes us to both. Maybe that's another. There's every time I talk about it, it opens something for me that I find really interesting.
Was it like that when you were young as well?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I always gravitated towards like mystical, magical things, like that. I think that was a place for me to escape. So I think I did connect with something that felt kind of otherworldly that I couldn't name. But it really wasn't until I was, I would say, in my 20s that I took on this interesting fascination with it.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. Now I'd like to go revisit the movie now that you've said that and see how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Things to do this weekend.
Yeah, it's fun.
So let's go back. Let's go to your childhood. You grew up in West Vancouver.
Yeah.
Tell me about your family and growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, where do we even start? I always say that I mostly grew up in West Vancouver because I did eventually move around a little bit, but my roots were planted there, and I was born there. And I would say that I was always just like a really, really quiet child. I was quite introverted. Now I'm questioning like how introverted I was, or was I, just like kind of afraid of my voice? Was there, were there reasons why it felt hard to speak up? And I think maybe it's just the age that I'm at that you get so introspective sometimes. But I think that translated into me wanting to express myself creatively. And so dance was an outlet for me. And that's sort of where, where a lot of my childhood time was spent. Lots of interesting things happening in the family, and certainly, like sort of points that feel like roots or branches of the system, or that, my dad was quite ill. When I was growing up, he was diagnosed with a rare neurodegenerative disease. And my mom was also sick with something called cardiomyopathy, so a really significant heart disease. So there was a lot of things going on in the household, and it was just kind of this like play around like navigating all things a little bit. I want to say too young, but maybe it's not too young. It's just what I was sort of initiated into early on.
Yeah, I was going to ask, in that environment, did you ever feel like you had to grow up really fast?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think everyone said to me that I was an old soul from a very young age. And someone recently, it was Jeffrey March, Marsh, incredible activist on Instagram, if anyone wants to look him up. They speak really, really beautifully about some of our stuff growing up in interesting scenarios. And they said that sometimes the old souls, that it's less about it being something like virtuous or something interesting about someone, and more like the survival or coping mechanism. And I found that to be so true, so accurate. I was like, I think there's something soulful about us all. And I think that for some of us, we're just like, just catapulted into something of needing to be that way. Right? And so that old soul thing just kind of changes the flavor a little bit.
I've never heard that perspective.
Yeah.
Aside from their illnesses, what were mom and dad like?
So they're very, they're both very different. And I'll speak to my dad in the present. He has passed, but Dad was quite, I would say quite strict in some ways, but he also had this like wicked sense of humor. He worked a lot, so he wasn't present as much. So I think I'm having a hard time even in explaining them this like version that I knew as a child, and then like this integrated part, which is like, oh, I look back at my dad and I see like the way that he was still like a little bit of a hurt child. and didn't get to express himself the way that he likely would have been, or the creativity. So he was all those things, but they didn't necessarily they didn't get fullness. They didn't get space. And maybe that's a similarity. My mom was the same. My mom was very much the same. She is still like one of the most generous humans that I've ever known. Exceptionally caring, probably to a fault, right? Like there's like definitely this like way in which it was very easy for her to abandon herself. And I think that was like a way in which, as a child, that she could survive. And so we had these dynamics that I think were probably kind of battling each other out in the household. Their marriage wasn't a happy one by any means. And likely they both were not fulfilled in their roles. And probably part of that is that I think those parts of themselves that didn't get the tenderness and love and care that they deserved as children were having it out in the relationship or in the family dynamic that was available to them now. Yeah.
So that's a very complex childhood to navigate.
Yeah. And it's not to say that there isn't a lot of love. There was, but there was a lot of pain. And I think that those moments, it was often, the pain was often felt still in the loving moments. I think of like where we were all happiest, and that was when we went to Hawaii. And it's probably why I still like feel one of the many reasons why Hawaii feels like a very good place to be. But it was one of the places I think it was a good place for us all to be together.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a, like you said, one of the many reasons it's such a healing place.
Yeah.
When you step
Ooh.
there, there's just something else.
Yeah. Geographically, it
Exactly.
it holds something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Tofino and Ucluelet. Like you step there and this is something else. I always say, I think it's at a latitude and longitude where it's an energy vortex of some sort.
There actually also is a triangle between, I think I'm referring to it as a triangle. Maybe it's not, maybe it's a line, but I did hear this around like the cultural navigation of the indigenous peoples from like Polynesia to Ucluelet, to Tofino, right? So there are people in Haida Gwaii that have close connection to ancestors in Hawaii. So there actually is like a lineage or a path.
Wow. I just got chills when you said
right?
that. Yeah.
And I'm no expert to speak on that, but I've certainly read some things that kind of relate to that magic.
Oh, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And then you said you started dancing at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
3.
Yeah.
Was it something that you loved as a child and asked to be put in?
Yeah. So I don't remember asking.
Yes.
But I imagine that I did. Like that, there was still like room at that point for play. And I think it would have made a lot of sense that I went into dance. And I think my mom loved that I went into dance. She couldn't deny that. So yeah, I funneled a lot of energy there, and like I'd say both positive and negative energy. Like it, became a place to kind of transmute some stuff.
Yes, movement is therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, and not to jump ahead too much, but one of the things that I've sort of been like re-understanding is that with dance, maybe it helped me a lot more than I realized, because it gave me this like the embodiment part that like I wasn't able to speak to. And so like I think it actually kept me safe in a lot of ways, even though
yeah. And I guess you feel right when you dance, and in a way it keeps you close to your body, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so by 9, you went to the National Ballet School here in
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
which is huge at such a young age.
Yeah, I don't think that they take children so young anymore. I think it's gone
Mm.
up a little bit because it's just quite a shock to the to the person to just kind of go away from home so soon.
Yes.
But yeah, I went to the national, and I do remember very much wanting to audition and get in and get accepted, and that was all exciting, and it was all exciting until I went there, and I was like just terribly homesick and quiet and like weird,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're so young,
Yeah.
and I was saying to you the other day that I've watched a number of documentaries and shows on ballet schools, and if art imitates life, then they're very intense and competitive spaces to
Mm-hmm.
be growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they certainly are. And I feel like I think I was just so birthed into it that I didn't even realize
Mhm.
that was that there was anything different. It was just like, yeah, you had to work the hardest. You had
Yeah.
to be the best.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
What did you feel like when you danced?
I think I'd have to look at that through like I sort of seeing like a scan, like an MRI. I'd have to look at it through a scan from like when I was like 9, and then I'd have to look at a scan through when I was like 14 and then 18. They would all be so different.
Mm.
I think what feels the most like consistent, or if there was a thread, is like it felt like truth. Like it felt like truth in my body. Like there was some way, even though I pushed myself, questionably too much, or even though it was kind of this, these demands put upon it, there was like a truth to the way I danced. I was very, very emotive. Like people would always say that, like they were really touched, like there was tears, or there was like a way that I could communicate something through dance. So it was very emotional and was always very truthful. And I think that's, I think the other layers, I'm curious to ask myself what all they felt like. Certainly at times joy, like, like just those moments where you just nailed it.
I mean, it's so beautiful and effortless to watch as someone who's watching a dancer or watching a show, and then when you realize all of the hard work and pain that goes into it, you have so much more respect. You're athletes. You are true athletes. Dancers are.
Yeah, they really are. And yeah, I hope that's changed. I don't feel like I'm involved too much with the narrative of dance anymore, but I hope that has changed. We see, individuals like Misty Copeland certainly changing. Yeah, just changing the way we look at some things, and it really does take its toll.
Yeah, what
and
an
it's
icon
incredible.
she is.
She is. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful human. And so you traveled quite a bit. So Vancouver to Toronto,
Yeah.
Winnipeg, and then
New
New York.
Yeah. And it was
So-
back and forth between those because
Yeah.
I would be homesick. Like,
Yeah.
be like, no, I'm going to study here for a
Yeah.
while.
Was it ever this tension between being homesick but simultaneously also wanting to like be away from home?
Yeah, I think, I don't know that I would have known that then, but yeah, I think absolutely there was this like, oh, what else exists? And in like so many ways, like what else exists beyond Vancouver? What exists beyond the studio? What exists beyond home? What are other people doing? But then also not having like this, I don't know, this internal security or safety to like to land in those places where I'm like, oh, it feels okay to be homesick. Yeah.
And then your chapter in New York, were you around 12 when you landed there?
No, I was around 14 was the
Okay.
first time I went for the summer to American Ballet Theater.
What was that like for you, being in New York?
Oh, it was I was going to say it was the best. I would cut myself off there. like there was a version in my head that was the best. It was like, this is amazing. I am here. And that felt really good. It felt really good to be like, I've worked this hard. I am pushing boundaries. Because at that time, like, especially in the studios that, were around here, like no one went to New York. You stayed in Canada. And I was like, no way, man. I'm going to do something different. So it felt really cool. I loved New York. There was something about the energy right away that, it felt really good. At the same time, I really didn't get to experience New York because I was just training.
Right. Yep.
So, you get to the studio, sweaty, stinky old studio, and you were there for the rest of the day and until bedtime, right? So, exciting, interesting, and
Yeah. And this was, this was a couple of years, but you were saying that at the age of 12 was when you first developed an eating disorder.
Around the age of 12, it certainly started to take hold. Like I moved sort of from this place of like, what I would say, like more disordered, like, kind of dabbling into like weird relationship with my body and weird relationship with food to something that became much more functional. Like this actually helps serve a purpose, which ultimately I think a lot of our, addictions and behaviors do is, even if they're really destructive, they're helping us with something. And it gave me a lot of control. It gave me a lot of control in like a world and an upbringing, being, the other thing being in dance is, especially if you're not really going to school, is you're just around adults. So again, like that old soul thing is like, it's so filtered, like there's so many layers to it that, I was now living in a kind of adult world and food became like a really easy place to control my life.
And tell me about the moment where you realized that dance wasn't your happy place anymore and surrendering to that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's like a more of a forced surrender, to be honest. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. Surrender is surrender. I don't know, as I say it. But I think there was just like such a pivotal moment of like, I decided to choose, unfortunately, my poor health, my declining health, my eating disorder over my art. And I think that just kind of indicates like how much in the depths I was, that like that actually felt like the best choice. Yes, dance was not a happy place for me at that point. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of expectations. But I certainly couldn't say that like the other thing was making me any happier, right? But it created this way out. It created this pathway out for me. And I feel like there's so many layers to my relationship with dance that I'm still, like being 40 years old, like still just trying to like figure out. It's like, no, I definitely wouldn't have been happy staying in that career. I know that wouldn't have been fulfilling. And I'm so curious, like how I could have supported myself or how I could have been supported to get to that place in a more, with like just a little bit more compassion. Yeah.
Do you still dance?
I don't, but I'm actually thinking of getting back into it. Yeah. I really just stepped away from, like I had this aversion. It became really convenient for me to like blame dance.
Yeah.
And also just kind of painful to watch it and see myself in those moments, but not being there. And so I just distanced myself entirely. And just again, exploring this piece around like maybe dance actually gave me like this outlet and this gift, because there was a certain part I worked so hard for, and a certain part was gift. I had a gift. And so to feel like I'm not actually doing something with that gift, even if it's just like, I don't know, released in some of my shit from the week,
right,
then like I think there's something there. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about like how do we move back into that? Like what does that look like? What do I need to navigate to allow myself the space to, yeah, move a bit again?
Is it really calling you, or is it kind of just a little inkling of maybe?
I think it's really calling me, but what's less certain is like is the how.
Mm,
Yeah. And I think it'll be like in a very, I don't think it's anything major, you
yeah.
know, like I don't foresee myself training per se, but yeah, maybe it just means me renting a studio
Yeah.
and letting my body move.
Mm.
I don't know.
It feels so good. When I was taking my sound therapy certification, we had a voicing teacher,
Mm.
and it's something that I've said on the podcast before, but I'll quickly repeat it. Um, she made us she made us all sing a lullaby, and to take
Ah.
note of our voice.
Mm.
And then she turned on a beautiful piece of world music, and she got us all to move and dance. But she said, don't dance like you're at the club. Dance like you're a rubber band, just the way that your body wants to move.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all did for about 20 minutes. And then when this portion was over, she had us sing the lullaby again, and to take note of how much more our chest had opened and
Yeah.
how much stronger we felt. And I loved it so much that now in the morning I'll always throw on some kind of music, whatever I feel like, a favorite song, maybe something more that's shamanic and tribal, and I will dance for 5 minutes
Yeah.
in the way that my body just wants to. And it's made me feel much more balanced in my masculine and feminine energies, because I think I was very imbalanced prior, like more masculine than feminine.
Mm-hmm. That's like me. That's like me. That's been
Yeah.
something I've been negotiating. But yeah, it's like I think it gives you that space.
Yes.
It gives you that space. And whether that's, as we have kind of talked about a little bit before, but like, yeah, maybe that's singing, maybe that's breath, maybe that's dancing, just building our capacity to like actually, yeah, settle into it,
Yeah.
to drop the performance.
To drop the performance. Tell me about the next chapter after dance, when that was over and
Yeah.
you pivoted to other things. And I'm sure that there was a bit of an identity crisis as you moved
Yeah.
out of that. But yeah, you eventually went to school to become a counselor.
Yeah.
There was a portion in there where you were a stylist.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how this journey came to be into this next stage.
Very mushy, very like a stew, like a soup. Like if I think of the next parts that happened, like I wonder how the chapters go, like how that would actually translate. But it would be that I spent a lot of time in a process of rejecting recovery, and rejecting recovery for a very long time, and then deciding I was going to give myself a chance, because I didn't really have any other options at that point. And so that was like a messy, unclear, hard to remember at times period of my life. But it also was obviously a place for me to land from being like this, not a dancer anymore. I was like, I'm going to be the sick person. I'll be the sick person. And so that was like an interesting identity to claim for myself. But it worked, that worked for a period of time. And I think that was the catalyst, like the next chapter, which is like, if I can get better, I feel like anyone can get better. And I know that I always temper that right now with like, maybe that isn't true. Like maybe that's not fair to say. But I think that like the intention behind it is that, being in some very low places, and knowing that like there could be like a rise out is like the possibility that others can find a rise out too. And so that's what brought me into studying counseling. And that was interesting, and also allowed me to understand some of my own healing, because I'd been in and out of therapy for already by that point 10 years. Yeah, so to see it from like a different lens and ask some of those questions was cool. And also when I finished, I was like, nope, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. I don't want to do this. I actually want to have fun. I want to be a kid-ish. I want to explore being a little bit more free and reckless. And those didn't add up with being a counselor. So maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe that's what we need to re-navigate is like, oh, we can actually be wild and reckless
Yes,
too and
yeah.
still help people in reasonable ways.
As long as you're not hurting anyone
As long as you're not-
intentionally.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So, so yeah, I was just like, no, I can't integrate that at this point. So I'm not going to do that. And then I did get into styling for a while. I had this brief period of time where when I moved from dance, again, like having identity crisis. And also I'm someone that continually wants to try new things. So like a pattern in my life is that I am like, oh, what next? What next? But I did, I modeled for a little bit. And I was like, don't like that. I do like this. I really enjoy being able to express and create, and beautiful things is a way. I think we need we need beauty in our world, and so using clothes was an interesting way to do that. And so I did that for a bit.
Yeah, you took the question out of my mouth. I was going to say, like, as you made the shift from dance, you spent so many years expressing through movement. And so now through clothing, I always see clothing as, in fashion, as in style, as an expression of who you are. So you almost just shifted it to just a different medium.
Yeah, I mean, the things that I shifted into that were not creative did not ever take traction. I think it was like the only way that I knew how to, express myself. So, yeah, fashion was like an easy conduit for that.
Yeah. And you enjoyed it for a time?
Yeah, for a time. I didn't take it seriously though. And maybe that's like, I didn't care enough about it. Like I cared enough about it for myself. Like I always thought that was interesting. But I just didn't, there wasn't this like, this drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fire wasn't there for it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. And then you found yourself into nutrition organically too.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, obviously we probably can put two and two together with an eating disorder that would be a pivotal part of recovery. But I was just curious about doing things really differently. So, it felt very important to understand food from a different level because I've just really never been friends with it. I mean, even as a child, like I loved food, like I loved the taste of it, but I didn't really understand what it was for. I didn't really eat vegetables growing up. Like there weren't, the things that like, there was nothing really wholesome that I felt like I could connect to with food. So I felt like studying nutrition would allow me the conduit to talk with people that were struggling with the relationship to food and body in a way that allowed them also to be heard through what's going on in their minds and their spirits and their souls. That like the nutrition lens wasn't just going to be one-dimensional, which is what I definitely experienced in treatment, in recovery, was that it was like, no, this is like the boxes that this fits into, and it serves a purpose.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is nourishing. Like, how is it nourishing not only your body, but like all of it, all of you.
Yeah. And we leave that out of the conversation. And so that, like, you can hear the difference between when I was talking about fashion. Like, that excites me. How can we actually look at it through different lenses that allow a holistic human to be, to be helped. And so I really did think it was going to be just like a very, I thought it was going to be just that. But as I started taking clients and as I started integrating, the things that I pushed away in the past, like, studying to be a counselor, they started to infiltrate everything that was coming out, because it was just like, how can we talk about food? We can't talk about your anxiety, or how do they go together? How do they go? And they very much do, right? So, yeah, basically my work has just evolved into this like kind of integrated, like this weaving where a lot of not only the stories and experiences in my life support, but then like these different modalities that actually all belong together, which is why the word holistic is just so important, because it's the whole.
Yeah, and you have so many different things that you pull from, because I think you are a breathwork facilitator as well, and then there's some energy medicine, and so your approach really is this encompassing circle.
I hope it to be. It's at least leaving the possibility that if that is what someone wants, and they don't always want that, but if that's what someone wants, that we can do that.
Yeah.
Because I think so many people get left out of this medical model of our care, our Western medical model, and I think we just we can think a little bit differently and get more creative. I had to get creative about my healing, and I'm a small white woman, so if I needed to get creative, like gotta look at everything.
Yeah, it's I feel similar about my approach, even with sound, and that yes, there is the sound part, but I do integrate emotions, like what's the root of like what you're going through right now, and that often will manifest in a physical chronic illness. So let's get down to that. And so me understanding that, and then also pulling from traditional Chinese medicine, at least the sound part of it, so qigong sounds to help the person balance their body. And again, I feel like I really do love that more integrated approach to sound, because everything's connected, right? And so it's not one solid thing or the other. You have to look at everything.
And I mean, I think our emotions honestly are one of the most crucial parts of our healing.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's a basis of most of my work, is like just getting people into proximity of being okay with their emotions, being okay with what comes up, or understanding why certain ones come up, or how we can be with this, how it feels in our body, right? We're very quick to say, oh, I'm angry, or I'm sad. But it's like, oh, like what does sad feel like in your body right now? Like, where is it?
Right.
Like this embodied version of understanding our emotions is, it's like pivotal in our healing.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know, especially now, and if you are allowed to say in just general takeaways, what you see your clients going through from an emotional standpoint. Are there any themes or general takeaways that people are going through this right now?
Yeah. I mean, the common word that comes up is discomfort, and I think a lot of people are experiencing that. I think maybe I'm going to name a few things that just feel important, is a sense of belonging. I think people feel a lack of sense of belonging right now.
To others or to themselves?
Both. Yeah, both. And because of that, there's like despair, like there's a great sadness, or there's a great anxiety. Yeah, and both are hard places to be in. Yeah, I was going to say grief too. I think there's a lot of grief right now, collectively, individually. And these are like, I'm naming these. These are the hardest emotions to be with.
Yeah.
We don't want to be with our sadness. We don't want to be with grief. We don't want to be with anxiety. We want to run from it. We want to like just turn the F around and look at something that's easier to look at, like our phones or behaviors, whatever.
Yeah. It's important to move through it though, right?
It's the only way.
Yeah.
As far as I've figured out.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the idea of achievement and perfection and this is just an assumption, but having grown up doing what you were doing with the dancing, I'm assuming that there is a lot of that, like achievement and perfection, not just for you, but probably amongst your dancer colleagues back then. How have you reconciled with that now?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that probably up until my 20s, perfectionism was something that was very much a driver. And I don't identify with it much anymore. That doesn't mean it doesn't, there's something about it that still threatens and scares me. I think what comes up is that if I'm not perfect, then I have to deal with the fact that someone won't be pleased. And people pleasing is like primary, go-to is people pleasing, trauma response, fawn, deer in the headlight. That's me. So I think that's where I'm still negotiating is the people pleasing aspect of it. I don't necessarily have the same expectations. The expectations for myself are very different. I want to be, I want people to know that I'm a kind person, or to feel kindness around me. I want them to feel loved around me. I want them to feel safe around me. I want them to feel like they're the most important person when I'm talking to them. Those are like the expectations that I have for myself, and maybe I have to examine those too. Like maybe I can't be all of those things. It's a good conversation we're having here, May.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure on oneself.
It is. It is. So maybe it's just that the pressure has shifted gears, and yeah, I think I need to sit with that one a little bit more. It's like I've healed parts of it.
Yeah.
And then there's still parts where it's like, oh, lady, just listen to yourself.
Yes,
those are
the journey.
Those are big expectations you just named.
What have you learned most about yourself in the last 18 months?
My capacity to feel is huge, and I can feel safe with it for the first time in my life. I feel like I've just gone through so many layers in my life of slowly thawing, defrosting. And there's lots of edges to me, and I'm okay with those edges. But the one edge I'm not okay with upholding is that, my feelings, I don't need to hold my feelings in, and I can let them be expressed, and they're not going to kill me. They will bring me to my knees. They have many times this year. I've never felt more in my life, and I'm so much better for it.
Oh, I feel you on that one really deeply. I felt that one right in my chest. Yeah, feeling more than ever.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah. Expressing more than ever, too. Expressing exactly how I'm feeling. Expressing boundaries more than ever.
God.
Wow.
That's the hardest one.
It's so hard, but necessary. And also when you do, you just feel this great sense of, wow, I just really honored myself by saying that, no matter how hard that was.
Yeah. I think, with boundaries, the thing that I'm always navigating is that we have a feeling after we've set them, and it's usually a lousy feeling. And it's how can I be with this lousy feeling and also know that that's not as important as the boundary just set.
Just taking care of oneself, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's practice. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of ritual or ceremony that helps you come back to yourself if you're ever feeling disassociated or disconnected from your being?
Yeah. I mean, ritual and ceremony are favorite words. So yes, I feel like I try and engage daily in ritual and ceremony through be it my meditations or doing my own breath work, doing it for myself. And then there's times where I involve myself in something that's far greater and involves music, and it involves beats and drums and my ability to breathe into a really creative world and like a very alternative place for me that I don't often name. And that's probably some of where like I express that movement place. That's maybe where I get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I want my life to be a ceremony. I want my life to be a ritual, and I don't know how to quite to get there yet. And I know it's in very small and practical ways, but it's always on my mind. Or like, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I was going to say even just walking my dog.
Yeah.
Even just how is that a ritual? How is that a ceremony? How is it that like being with the trees and thanking the earth and thanking the birds and
These little things that are just yours that you do to help yourself come home. It's so nice to have those. Yeah. Have you really learned to trust yourself, to trust your body, to trust your intuition, to trust your soul?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, there's room for error. There's room for error where those default parts of me, especially if I'm, navigating anxiety or stressful periods where, there's going to be parts of myself that come online that say, oh, yeah, no. Don't do that. It's best to do this thing, like override the system. But yeah, I think that I'm mostly coding my body now for self-trust. Yes. Intuition is like, I just feel like, and maybe you resonate with this, it's just a continuing practice of deepening. So I'm curious what more. I'm certainly like in with it, but I think that there's a deepening.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes, for sure. I just have a couple more questions for
Please.
you. My first one is for others out there who may be suffering in shame or silence with an eating disorder. What supportive words would you give them right now?
I feel like I'll say this with a disclaimer, but all that comes to mind is you are worthy. You are worthy. The disclaimer is that it can be really hard to hear that when you're in your shame and when you're in your pain. Sometimes I am worthy. Ooh, it just makes me emotional. Sometimes hearing I am worthy just doesn't feel acceptable. And so if that's you, then I want you to know that that's okay too. That we can know that you are worthy, and we can hope and try and support you in finding that worthiness for yourself.
I got teary just listening to you say that. If you were going to impart words of love to younger Kate, just as you were getting into dance, what would you tell her about life to this point, and what it has shown you about who you are?
I'm going to reintegrate that question. Can you say it again so I can really...
Yes. If you were going to impart words of love on your younger self, when you were getting into dance or even past that, what would you tell yourself about what life has shown you up to this point, about who you are?
That's a hard one. What would I say? You've stumped me. You've stumped me. I feel like, what would I say? I would say, I think there's a part of me that would say, go easy on yourself. Go easy on yourself, because there's going to be a lot of surprises. There's going to be a lot of pain. And so like, especially thinking of her back then, I'm like, oh, babe, have fun where you can, have fun, laugh more. Because that didn't feel necessarily like all that I could access. So I think that's what I would tell her. And I think I'm still telling myself that. I'm still telling myself, like, let it be easy. Let it be easy. Have fun. Play. I think we all need that reminder. Because the rest of it is hard. And that's okay. but we can contrast it.
Yes, to balance it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. My final question that I ask everyone, with what it is that you do, what do you want to leave behind in the world?
Well, I think I've thought about this before. I've heard the question. But I think it comes back to, like, there was this question that is asked, and I think Deepak Chopra asked it at some point, which is like to describe yourself in like things that don't contain your title, who you're married to, how many kids you have. And like anytime I've asked that question of myself, there's like some threads that come up, which is that I want to inspire. I am a teacher. I'm an artist. And so when you said that, it kind of made me think of those things and what those things carry with them. And I think I'd want, I'm trying not to formulate it too much because it's just something from the heart. Like, if you like, what do I need to set free there? Just that there's possibility, there's hope. There's hope. And that hopefully the people that I touched felt inspired or felt supported or felt in the presence of something beautiful and creative.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, something that you had said earlier about, and this is taking it back to the dancing, where it was this, you worked hard, but you knew you had a gift. And you truly do. You were talking about presence, and I think your presence is a gift. I can feel it just being in this room with you, how just authentically truthful you are about who you are. And I don't come across that much. So that is a gift.
Thank you, May.
Thank you for being here. I hope to have many more conversations with you like this.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. If you enjoyed that last conversation, be sure to check out more episodes of The Craft on Spotify and guest photo galleries on the website at wearethecraft.com. Thanks again for listening.